Assalamu alaikum students, this is Farwa Batul, your O-level computer science instructor, and welcome to another video of chapter number 8, programming. Here in this video we are going to start with the case statements that helps us to do selection in your program. Yes, a case statement allows you to have multiple choices that can be made within your program. So it can be like, let's suppose you are depending upon the value of the user, and according to that value you are going to have different work to be done. So um, let's suppose if the number is 100, you have to do something else. If the number is 200, you have to do something else. If it is 300, you have to do something else. Or if it is 400, you have to do something else. So here you have multiple choices in your program. Depending upon the value that is being entered by the user, you have to make certain choices. Now, let me just quickly give you another example, that is the example of your book. Let's suppose there are two numbers in your program. Number one, let's suppose it is 100, and there is another number that is number 2, that is, let's suppose, 37. Now, what you can do, there are four different operations that must be done in your mathematical operations that needs to be done on these numbers. If the user selects a plus, the number is going to be added. If the user selects minus sign, then the number will be subtracted. If the now user tells to do multiplication, that's the third option. And then the fourth one is the division. So it depends upon the user choice that where or what is to be done by the program. So there are multiple choices in case statements. Yes, and how we can do these case statements in pseudocode and in three of your programming languages that are mentioned in your book. One is Python, Visual Basic, and Java. Here in this video, we are going to see this in detail. Now let me just quickly go through this. This is the table that is available or mentioned in your book. So let me just quickly do this. The first thing is you have to see the pseudocode, how the case statement works. So look at this. Case of is your keyword for the case statement. Case of. When you write case of, then you must have to mention any variable that needs to be checked, whose value needs to be checked. So OP value is here basically a string that can have four different values, or that can have four different inputs of the user. It can be OP value can have a value of plus as a string, or it can have a value of minus as a string, or it can store a value of multiplication, static sign, or it can store the value of slash that indicates division. So OP value is basically the operation value that needs to be done between two numbers that are mentioned below, number 1 plus number 2. And after that, once you mention OP value in your case of, then the value of OP value variable is going to be checked. Here are different cases that needs to be executed depends upon the user choice. Let's suppose if the value that is inside OP value variable is plus, then if it is plus, then what will be done? Number 1 and number 2, whatever the numbers or the values are there in the variable number 1 and number 2, it will be added and the result will be stored in another variable named as answer. So let me just quickly give you a practical example for this. Let's suppose number 1 is number 1 is 100 and number 2 is, let's suppose, 25. So what is to be done here? If OP value is selected as plus or is entered as plus, Then what is to be done? Number 1, number 2 will be added, and the answer becomes, the result of the addition will be 125. So this is what is to be done when OP value is selected as plus or entered as plus. Now, if the operation is minus, remember that only one of these options will work. Depends upon the value of your variable. Number 2, if the user enters minus as your operation. So what you will do, you will minus 100 minus 25. 100 minus 25 becomes 75. So in the second case, if the second case is true, then the result will be 75 that needs to be stored. It is going to be a minus subtraction between the numbers. If the value that is selected for OP value, operation value, is static. So static indicates the multiplication between two numbers. So 100 will be multiplied with 25, which becomes 2500. So we will just change the answer. In this case, it becomes 2500 that is being stored after calculation in the answer variable. And let's suppose the fourth case becomes true. The value that is selected for operation value is static. If it holds static in it, then numbers will be divided. So when 100 will be divided by 25, it becomes 4. So 4 is going to be your answer here in case number 4. So this is how you are specifying the multiple cases, and remember that in case statements only one of these cases must be true at once. Otherwise, now look at this, otherwise only works when none of the cases are true that you have mentioned above. If it doesn't have a plus, it doesn't have a minus, it doesn't have a static, or opt value, OP value doesn't have a slash. If none of these cases are true, then you move towards otherwise. And in otherwise, you are displaying a message to the user, please enter a valid choice. So this is how the case statement works. It actually works on the value of the variable, and depends upon that values you make certain choices in your program. And then there is end case to indicate the end of your case statement. Now let me moving towards the different programming languages to do this. So let's just quickly see the code for Python first. Okay. In Python, how it works. Okay, first you are using if. In if you are mentioning the condition that needs to be checked, OP value double equals plus. It means that let's suppose if the value of OP value is plus, it is plus that is being stored in OP value, then the numbers will be added. Then you have else if. ELIF stands for else if. Here you have second case. This was case 1. In case 2, OP value, if it is minus, then you have to minus these numbers, subtract them and store the result in the answer. Then you have else if, that is your third choice. In the third option, if the value of OP value is static, then you have to multiply these two numbers and store it in answer. And the fourth case here is else if OP value stat is having slash stored in it. So in case of slash, the numbers must be subtracted, and sorry, not subtracted, it must be divided, and the result must be stored in answer. And the final is your else keyword that indicates that if none of your cases are true, then what to do? Enter, just tell the user that it is an invalid operator that you have selected or you have entered. So this is how it is going to work. The case statement is going to work in Python. There is a small difference in your syntax, but this is how you can do multiple choices in Python. And it cannot only 4, it can be more than 4 if you are going to increase the OP value um, else by using ELIF. So you can use ELIF else if to keep on increasing the cases in your case statements. And the final will be your else that will only work when none of the cases are true. Now let me just quickly move towards the next programming language, that is your Visual Basic. How we do this in Visual Basic. Look at this. Okay, first you are writing select as your keyword, and then there is case. And after case, you have mentioned here the variable that's value needs to be checked for different cases. So OP value is your string variable that can store 4 different values. It can be plus, it can be minus, it can be multiply, or it can be divide slash. So these are the 4 values. You have to store any one value in OP value for your desired case to be true. So the case one says that if it is plus OP value, if the value inside this is plus, if the operation is plus, the number will be added. It is just like the pseudocode. The other thing, you are here, you are using the case word for every choice. Case minus, then the numbers will be subtracted. Case multiply, then the numbers will be multiplied. And case slash, then the numbers are divided. So that's a small difference in the syntax. And finally, case else. Case else means when none of the cases are true, then just show an output message that it is invalid operator. And then there is end select. This is the end of your case statement. So here in Python, you are not specifying the end for your case statement. It is not needed, but in Visual Basic and also I think in Java, we are specifying, no, there is no need to specify. Only in Visual Basic, we are specifying the end of your selection statement. That is by using end select. Okay, the next thing is your Java. In Java, how you do this? You have to use the switch keyword for your case statement. Switch is the keyword, and inside the round bracket, you have to mention the variable whose value needs to be checked. And then you will be using the curly brackets for your different cases inside. So the case one is when the value, you are using case keyword to specify the conditions. So if OP value is a plus, then there is a colon. You have to mention what to do here. The numbers will be added and stored in answer. Then remember that every time when the case is finished, then you have to write down break. Break tells you that now you have to go outside. Now there is no need to continue with the case statement. Now you must continue after your case statement. So that is basically end. That indicates end of your particular case that is being selected. Now the second case is minus. If the value of OP value is minus, then number minus number, it will be subtracted and stored in answer. Then you have a break for your second case. Then in the third case, if the value is static inside your OP value, then the answer will be a multiplication of two numbers, and then there is break. So every time you have to mention break after the case finishes. And in the fourth case, you have static to divide the numbers, and then there is a break. Remember that in case statements, whenever the case Whenever there is no matching for any of these cases or none of the cases are valid, then there is a default, or there is something called um, in Visual Basic it is case else, and in Python it is only else. So these are the different syntax that specifies that what to do when none of these cases work. So the final is your default, and in default you will just tell the user that it's an invalid operator that is inside your OP value. So we have to change it. Okay, so this is all about your case statements. In the next video, I will be starting with the activity 8.5 that is going to help us to tell you how we can make different choices using the case statements in your different programming languages. So I will be doing activity 8.5 in Python, in Visual Basic, and in Java. So stay tuned, stay connected, and do not forget to subscribe the channel. Bye bye.